afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of PhotoBiz Live. This is Danny from the PhotoBiz team, and today we're going to be joined by Jeff from the Passionate Support team. So many of you guys who are attending right now may have called in and spoken to our Passionate Support team, and Jeffrey is one of our awesome agents that we have here available to help you out with any kind of questions you have about your PhotoBiz product. So today we're going to be talking about making your business model shine on the PhotoBiz Store. So Jeff's going to be showing you how to do that. Just take your business model and place it online in our store, and how it really can be fluid and flow and work well. So in addition to getting the opportunity to learn from Jeff in today's webinar, we're going to have a question and answer session at the end of the webinar. You can submit your question using the chat tool, and they're going to be answered at the end of the presentation. You can also join the discussion on Twitter by using the hashtag #PhotoBizLive. So if at any point during today's webinar you have any difficulty hearing Jeff or myself, or having any visual problems viewing the slides, please just use the comment box and let us know. We're also going to be recording today's webinar and placing it on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/photobiz, and you can actually view all of the previous webinars that we've done on this channel. So be sure to click on subscribe when you're there, and that'll keep you updated with the new videos as we upload them. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to Jeff.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us for another opportunity to share some information with you about some of our experiences as your web consultants and your Passionate Support team. What we're going to be covering today is a glimpse more so into the business model for clients that we work with intimately, including those that I've worked with, and kind of sharing some of the information as well as some of the lessons learned from our experiences, primarily just affiliating ourselves on what it is that you want to accomplish with your business model and how we can make that virtual on the store platform. So today we're going to be covering where do we start when you're considering placing your business model online or virtually, what should you consider, and more importantly, what are some of the options that you can use. And then finally, what would your store actually look like, utilizing those tools and options? Again, I highly recommend, calling us to help you with that, which basically takes you to where should I start. So for most of my experiences, as well as the rest of the support team, most of our experiences around helping clients discover or, excuse me, determine how best to place their business model online, there's several things that we ask them. One of the most important facets is understanding various aspects of the business, which I'm sure is not necessarily new to any of you that are listening, but it's something that we reiterate because I think a lot of times when we're going through that business model over the phone or via email, we find sometimes there are a couple of subtle nuances that may be missed. So what I usually recommend to clients, particularly those larger clients who have a very large client base, or they're looking to branch out with their client demographic, so maybe they're trying to reach a new area or a new sector of business, or maybe they're trying to attract new customers. So maybe you only do weddings and you're attempting to emerge into the senior pool. There's some ideas that, like I said, we can share with you based on our experiences with photographers who do strictly seniors, or those who are doing seniors and want to branch out into weddings. Like I said, you can take advantage of the information and the experience that we've had with clients who actually have business models that are successful on the store platform. So outlining your business model on paper, I think, helps you place your vision in more of a in a visual sense so that you can kind of see the big picture. I will say that of many of the clients that I've worked with, I've literally gotten faxes from them or scanned documents, particularly if what they see within their business model is the need to be able to sort out, what specifically they want to make available. What I think more oftentimes than not is sometimes the process can be overthought, or they're overthinking the process, and that sometimes what we need to do is help scale down the focus. So you're trying to narrow the online experience down so for clients it's more intuitive and user-friendly. So what you should consider with your business model, obviously this is probably something that you all are familiar with, but I just want to impart some information. as far as the experiences that we've had with clients. More oftentimes than not, I find that this is one of the primary questions that I ask clients, particularly if their business model is extensive or they're looking to expand their business model. So the first consideration for us is, well, what is it that you plan to sell on the store? That's really going to play into what specific options we'd probably guide you to or consult you on to facilitate, again, that ease of navigation and really more the options that really empower your client rather than overwhelm them. Because I think part of that whole nuance of a virtual platform, again, is to create an online purchasing experience that is intuitive for clients, because more oftentimes than not, they're not going to necessarily read information, and so it has to speak to them from a visual standpoint. And a lot of times buttons establish immediate action because buttons actually serve as an action item. So they can serve with a name, but also direct access to wherever it is that you want to guide the client to. Another portion of the business model that I think is very, very important is identifying or creating an identity behind your brand. So if you're using one of our other products, let's say, for example, you're using one of our portfolio sites, a Flash HTML site, or even a biz site or a blog, you want to ensure that your identity as far as your brand is consistent across those platforms. I've seen in some occasions that clients have had different logos, primarily because I think they're trying to manage the experience for the client on that particular platform. But I think the other aspect of that too is really infusing your personality within that virtual environment. I think that that's really important. For some of the clients that I've worked with, sometimes putting a face to the brand name is critical, particularly when you're talking about working with children, whether that's newborn or maternity or family portraiture. And another aspect of the business model that we see emerging quite rapidly is that people are using video more and more often as a means of introducing themselves or making clients familiar with the actual process of having a portrait session. So like a day in the life of a particular client who's having a photo shoot. The final point, which I think goes hand in hand with the branding, is your store site inviting? In other words, do you make it appealing to them that they're wowed with the initial site in and of itself, and that there's some intuitive options that will kind of lead them further into whatever it is that speaks to them, whether that's a service or a product or a package that you offer. So one of the common points that I use with many, many clients, particularly those that I get an extensive amount of information from regarding their business model. Obviously, we're trying to narrow the scope of what you want the overall experience for your client to be online. And the verbiage or the adage or the motto that I use more oftentimes than not with clients is less is more. Less is more, because I think that in narrowing the focus of that online experience, clients again need to see intuitively what's available to them. Too many options, I find, either incense them to abandon the site, or they in turn pick up the phone, which then results in being a high-touch situation. And as many of you know, once they have you on the line, then they basically want to fulfill their order or inquire more about the services or the products that you actually offer, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but for many clients they have FAQs or questions and answers on the site so that they provide most of the commonly asked or commonly solicited items that clients want feedback on. I love Jessica Ray Photography's site because, as you can see, the virtue is very, very simplistic, very, very clean, very, very linear, and there's not so much that a client has to decipher. The menu options pretty much speak for themselves. But the other aspect that I love about Jessica's site is the fact that she actually provides some information on the front end that talks a little bit about what that online experience is going to be. So if you're talking about guiding people through the process, this is an effective use of what we call the biz site, where we have content pages that you're able to make available. And it allows you to dress up the front end of the store. So if you can imagine it being like a front porch, the front porch would have the welcome mat, and it would have windows and doors and maybe a flag out front that says welcome. So it kind of sets the tone or the atmosphere for what the online experience will be once someone comes into your store site. And again, I think it's an effective management of the expectation for your clients when they actually click on a particular option. I also think that simple means success. So in this case, I'm using Esther Gray's site as an example of a strict store site. So in other words, she has no content pages or no biz site attributed to her storefront. So one concept that I loved about it was that it's so well branded. It's beautiful. I think it's very, very intriguing and inviting. I think it looks like a collage at first glance, and I think that because this depicts a lot of what she would consider her brand, both in the texture and the overall feel of creating her photographs of her clients as her branding vehicle, is amazing. And so this particular site I use for clients strictly when they purchase the store, again, to show them the virtues of what can be done from a customization standpoint, and also an initial presentation of what it is that you want clients to take advantage of. The individual images that you see basically reflect client access to their galleries. So again, simple means success. Her clients hit the store site. There really isn't anything to think about. It's pretty straightforward and intuitive, and it leads them exactly where it is that she wants them to go in order to enhance their online experience. Another aspect of the business model for clients is not always strict photography in the sense of doing a shoot as much as it is providing folks a service per se. So I've been working with this particular client, Blue Liquid, which is out of Australia. And the thing that I loved about this particular site was, again, the cleanliness of it. And again, it's using the BizSite virtue in it. But most of the components within it talk about what the online experience is going to be for a particular client. So in this case, you can actually bring an image to Blue Liquid and have them create that image on a canvas. So of course the first question that I have in looking at the business model was to determine, okay, how do you see that happening in your head as the vision? What do you ideally see the online experience for your client being? That allowed us to look at a couple of different virtues within the store site itself, some of which we can use the options that are already within, embedded within the platform, and some of the others require a little bit of coding, which the store site actually offers the capability or the flexibility to do so. So whether your expertise with coding is simplistic or more of a novice as opposed to those who could probably code an entire site themselves, the platform is flexible enough to be able to accommodate that. And you'll see that there's an option here for you to upload your photo by clicking here. And basically this option is utilizing an external link which actually takes you to YouSendIt. And YouSendIt is a vehicle that allows you to upload content or an image or a document or whatever you have, and the recipient will actually receive that information attached to the email. Again, this was just a concept, an idea that I kind of tossed out on the table as a means of creating more of a linear, user-friendly online experience for this client, because it's one of the things that, was somewhat of an issue that he was wrestling with as far as how do I overcome the challenge of presenting my clients the ability to be able to upload issues or images. I think the other aspect of this, considering that maybe there's a portion of his client base that may not necessarily be technically savvy or comfortable with uploading content to an external site, so a site that's outside of the store. So we also created the option for them to click here to send him a message, which is basically just using the contact form. So again, using the virtues of the actual store site to benefit your clients long-term in their overall experience. So again, creating two vehicles, one of which for them to provide you the information to make their online experience successful, but also to give them the ability to contact you utilizing an option that's already embedded within the store site, which is the contact form. So let's talk a bit about what some of the options are. For those of you that are store owners, as well as those of you who are considering purchasing the store, these are probably the most commonly discussed or talked about items in the store site. primarily because of those clients that are using them. They want to, again, understand the most effective means of including their business model within the store virtues. So obviously, you know, we talk to clients about products and packages, but I think there's also a missed opportunity for clients to be able to provide your customers the ability to purchase your services. And I'll show you a bit further into the presentation what I mean by that. Another virtue that we find that may not necessarily be used as much as I think it could be is digital downloads, and I'll go into greater detail about what that actually entails or involves. And then finally, one of the newer options or features that we've created with the store site, which is registrations, which can be used in a number of different ways. And again, most of my brainstorming has come from collaborating with clients, looking at that business model, understanding what it is that we have as far as options within the store, and then coming up with something that we both feel encompasses the brand, is very online friendly, intuitive, but also encompasses all the different aspects of what it is that they want to gather, either in information or options. So in talking about all of that, again, the business model to me really comes down to one core aspect, which is managing the expectation of your client and or customer effectively. So I think part of what you're doing with your business model is you're stating the value of what it is that you offer. If you're a photographer, I mean, your photography is already, you know, it's already implied, but I think that there's also a statement behind the type of photography that you offer. Whether it's the style or the locations that you use or the type of photography that you do. But in this case with Blue Liquid, again, you're talking about the product that they offer and the difference between what they offer versus a competitor. Again, they're using the Biz site, which again is content pages or information pages that seamlessly integrates into your store. So this would be what's called like a Marquee Plus page. But again, really just pointing clients to where you want within the store. Again, making that value statement on the front end, creating buttons that are easy to navigate, particularly if you're trying to keep their focus to a particular section or products that you have within the store. And then I think, again, that this particular site or Blue Liquid has done a great job of showcasing their brand. So when you're talking about products, those can be as extensive as you would like. Blair Phillips is one of our premier photographers, and we use his site quite often. Thank you, Blair. And one of the things that I wanted to show you was basically how the products could be depicted virtually. So I think for most clients, you know, depending upon what they offer within their portfolio, from my experience with other clients, less is more, but I think you also know, based on your previous experiences with your clients, what works, what sells, and what doesn't. And so ideally, you're not necessarily trying to dump the entire business model within the store. For Blair, these represent more of the top sellers, but I think it represents basically all of the different aspects of his clients' requests or needs or wishes. And so it ranges anything from, you know, ornaments to Christmas cards to basically anything that he has within his business model. I think jewelry is something that he also offers too. So the store does provide you a great opportunity for you to provide information about your products, both from a description standpoint. So again, if you're trying to talk a little bit more about what it is that's involved or encompassed within that particular product, you can be as descriptive as you would like here. The other benefit that you have is that there's an image associated with that product, which can work twofold. One of which is you can show the initial image of the product that you're offering. But let's say, for example, it's a canvas. And so you want to show the thickness or the depth of that particular canvas wrap. So you can use basically another image to depict that. So basically you would click on the second image, or your client would click on the second image, and then they could see another example of this particular product that you're making available. The other thing that I'd also like to note, and I've done this with several clients, is there's a means of putting code within the actual product description. So for some, if they want to actually take them to Bay Photo, for example, to see a more expansive list of the different customizable options that are available, if that's who they're basically having their order fulfillment done by, you can do that. Now again, that kind of takes them outside of your site, but if it's done correctly, what it will do is open up a secondary window. In other words, so when their online experience with Bay Photo ends, they can revert back to your site and you actually haven't lost them. They'll basically be where they started out from. So again, it's just simple virtues of the product, a description, how many images it takes to fulfill that particular product, of course the price, and then providing them the quantity of whatever it is that they want to add to their particular shopping cart. Another aspect of the store site are packages. And I guess that goes without saying. It depends really on the clients that we're working with. Some clients use products as packages, and then some use packages in the true virtue of what they represent. I'm borrowing my colleague's website, ImageWorks Studios, and this is one of the Passionate Support web consultants. So we actually have folks that are legitimate photographers, and this is one of the web consultants that actually has a studio. And so you can see here that he's made a number of his packages available for his clients to select from. So those in-studio options or services that you want to provide to them, as well as on location. And again, I think it provides you an opportunity to give your client a glimpse into your business model. So if it's basically delineated by products and packages, again, it can be a seamless, clean sort of introduction to that information. And then the same would be true about packages as they were about products. It provides you an opportunity to talk more about what that particular package consists of. The other thing that is not necessarily represented here, but you can also create within your packages, and that is to create the actual options within the package. So let's say, for example, the package includes, as David has depicted here, an 11 by 14, 2 5 by 7s. You can actually create those options within the package. The same would be true for products. If you have specific options like framing or treatment or print paper, you can actually provide those options within the actual products as well as the packages here. The benefit, I think, is that it's rather intuitive. So in other words, from the client or customer's perspective, they understand specifically what it is that they have available to select from. And I think it also manages the expectation that part of what's required there needs to be fulfilled before they can actually check out. And our store will notify them of that as well. So if they attempt to check out and they actually haven't fulfilled the criteria for their store or this particular product or package, the store will actually notify them of that before they can actually check out. And the benefit there is that you don't end up with a high-touch situation. In other words, you have to pick up the phone and then explain to the client, you know, why their order was fulfilled, but can't actually be satisfied due to the parameters or the requirements therein. This is one of the clients that I have worked intimately with, PowerVision 360. And I think the great thing about this particular client, or my experience with this particular client, has not been so much just talking about the simple virtues of products or packages or even services. It's really dealing more with customization and the overall branding for that business. So PowerVision 360 provides commercial services to the greater Nevada area. And the interesting thing about this particular opportunity was the client that I was working with is very technically savvy, and she has an extensive amount of resources available to her. So it was literally like being on a playground with nobody there, and all the different toys and rides are all available to you. So the opportunity that I had here was to not only brainstorm about the business model itself, but what are some of the actual options that we can take advantage of within the parameter of the store, but also some of the virtues that we could create by way of coding. So again, the platform is flexible enough to accommodate your technical prowess, so whether you're more of a novice or if you're actually an expert. with your coding skills, you can utilize those options here. So this is basically a package, again, similar to the package that was depicted on David's site. The difference here is that we actually offered or created custom-coded buttons. And these buttons do work. Now, I don't have a live version of this here, but I just wanted to show you that you can actually create a means of, again, embellishing more of your brand within that online experience. And you can see with the branding, this is fairly consistent with what they have represented overall with their brand statement or their logo. Again, I think it's intuitive, and it also points clients to various portions within the website. So when you're talking about a Twilight package, you can actually see more specific information at a product level, what specifically a Twilight package is, as well as the additional add-ons that you can add to this particular package. So again, it was a great opportunity with a very, very complex business model that I think we made look very streamlined, very linear, and very intuitive, but also maintaining a lot of that branding that the client wanted to ensure was part of their overall business virtually. The next portion I wanted to talk about was services, and for a lot of clients, most of which may be new to the store or have had the concept of making their portrait sessions available online, so that you're basically having to step back from invoicing them manually or having to use email as the vehicle for creating or establishing that service with your particular client. It's a very successful option, and I think more and more clients are taking advantage of it, but I think part of it was trying to help them determine how best to depict it. So I used Blair's website, Blair Phillips Photography again, to show some of the options that are available to you as sessions. The benefit that I think literally is that you can point people to your main branding vehicle. So for him, you could start out at his portfolio site and easily get to the store. Services is one of the options that's listed as a menu option, and then from there your clients are presented with all different types of services. The benefit is that it gives them a complete glimpse of your business model as far as services are concerned. So in other words, if they're only there to take advantage of a senior session, or your son or daughter's taking advantage of a senior session, but that you also see an opportunity for you to take advantage of a family or portraiture session, all of that's clearly laid out from the initial option that's been clicked on in order to see the specific service that you want to take advantage of. But like I said, it's also an opportunity for you to showcase those other services. And that way it's fairly intuitive or easy for people to get back if they want to take advantage of that service at a later time. So again, I think that you're trying to create a means of luring people back to your website or creating more time on a virtual platform. Because as many of you may know or maybe don't know, for search engine optimizations, it's really important to try and keep people engaged within your site. So that kind of goes back to ensuring that your website or creating an environment virtually that's very inviting. And like I said, I think with the wealth of information that can be included within the store site, it kind of leads people into various portions of what it is that you do overall. So I wanted to show you the control panel, and some of you may be familiar with this, but if you're not, this kind of takes you more into the intricate workings of the control panel. What I will say about both the products, the packages, and the services is the virtue within the control panel is all the same. So I didn't want to inundate you with the same slides that would basically look different only by name. The virtues of them are consistently the same. So when I was talking about those particular products or packages that were offered, of course it's going to have a name, again an opportunity for you to embellish a bit more about whatever product or package or service it is that you're making available. Again, in this particular example, David noted the specific options that clients could take advantage of, but there's actually an options option here that would actually allow you to note those specific options, so that basically you could create menu options that would be represented in a drop-down menu. So in other words, they select a particular product, and then based upon that product, they have the following options. They can, of course, take advantage of those or they could not. So you could basically create an option that says not applicable, and that would allow them to bypass those required fields, again, when you're using the options. Here is the tab for images. So again, when you're talking about that particular product or package, if you want to depict that in several images to give the client a better understanding of what it is that they will receive as far as that finished product is concerned, you can upload the images there, and then that's going to create those numbers that you saw on the product page previously as far as the different views that are available. You can upload as many as you want, but again, the idea is less is more, so that again, you're not necessarily keeping the client fixated on a particular page, but that you're presenting them a streamlined set of options that they can easily and quickly select from in order to get to the end result, which is purchasing. Of course, you have the options here for whether you want to charge tax or not, and of course that would be controlled further in the control panel under e-commerce. That leads me to the next topic, which deals with digital downloads. So for many of the clients that we work with, digital downloads is becoming more and more popular. I think it's extremely popular with seniors. But I also found that there were opportunities to take advantage of the digital download feature within the store, particularly when you're talking about information that pertains to your branding. So whether you're talking about terms and conditions, reps and warranties, model agreements and things of that sort, disclosure information, all of that can be used through the digital download feature. Another thing that I think is really helpful, and I've had the experience of working with several clients with this when we've created another feature, which I'll show you shortly, is workshop materials. So I think that providing information about the particular workshop that would function more as like the syllabus for a particular course, or if in purchasing or registering for a particular workshop, that after they purchase it, it provides them the information that would be necessary in order to complete that course or workshop. So again, I just wanted to show you some of the options that you have available. The digital download works by virtue of using external image hosting. So in other words, the only thing that we really host would be our products, but you can use some open source options in order to utilize the digital download function. Here are just a couple examples that I listed, Dropbox, SkyDrive, and SugarSync. The great things about these particular options is that they don't require you to pay for them up front, so we always recommend anything that's organic or open source. And the other great thing is that when you refer people to use these particular platforms, you can also acquire credits, so that you're not necessarily, if you surpass the initial level for the image threshold, that you're actually having to come out of pocket in order to maintain the service or to take advantage of that service. You can actually receive credits for people signing up, which I think is great, and that's basically how I've managed to use Dropbox extensively, particularly when you're talking about sharing images or documents that are rather large in size. It's a lot easier to use these options rather than emailing. So the digital download, again, provides a URL for your customer to download that specific product, whether, again, it's workshop materials, agreements, contracts, or images. The length of the availability for that digital download you can actually set within the store. So if you only want to limit the ability for that particular download to be numbered or available to be downloaded, you could actually do that as a day parameter as well as a quantity. So if you only wanted people to take advantage of being able to download this document, you can basically dictate specifically how many times that product can be downloaded from each time the product is ordered. So I wanted to show you what that actually looks like. So the digital download is a feature on every one of the product packages or product pages or service page or package page. So it's based on the lower portion of the control panels. So up above where we were seeing the information that talks a bit more about what product it is that you're offering and the specific options within it, this represents the lower portion of that particular page. And you can see the reference here for digital download, but you can also see that I use the option for Dropbox. So in using a solution like Dropbox, there's one caveat, and the caveat is in order to create a means of successfully downloading whatever material it is that you're making available to your client and or customer, it needs to be in a public folder. So Dropbox is really intuitive with that, and I think SugarSync and SkyDrive are really easy and intuitive as far as that is concerned. Basically, by putting it in a public folder, it does present open access to the greater world, but really the only people that would know about it would be the people taking advantage of this link. And the other is that so that they don't encompass any security restrictions. If it's in a password-protected gallery on one of those platforms, it's not going to allow them to successfully download that item. And again, you're controlling the number of times of that particular option or product being available for them to download. And so you can actually see that depiction here by the number of days that the download is available, as well as the maximum number of downloads that are available per order. Again, you can attribute a specific cost if it's above and beyond what you would normally cost or price in making that specific product available. So if they want to take advantage of the digital download, of course, you can attribute additional costs there and, of course, attribute it to shipping. Now, this represents the entire product as a whole. So, again, this is just the lower portion of the product or package or service page. What I wanted to show you was what the client would receive on the back end. So they've gone in, they successfully purchased this particular workshop, let's say, for example, and there are course materials or a syllabus that's going to be made available to them. The thing that I love about the store is that you actually have the security of knowing that your intellectual property cannot be accessed until such point that the client or customer actually pays for it. So you're not having to worry about them getting the link too soon in the purchasing process. They actually have to secure the purchase or complete the transaction. And even on the receipt, the actual link is not depicted there. It's actually on the email confirmation that they get for, in this example, the registration. So again, they've successfully paid for it. You've gotten a receipt. They've gotten a receipt. But here is further confirmation of the success of that purchase, in this case, the registration for a workshop, the email address, of course, and then the actual option to click here to download additional materials. So again, I think that this is a very successful option that many clients are not taking advantage of, but I think are becoming more and more popular with one of the newer features that we've introduced, which I'll talk about in a minute. And that new feature is registrations. So I'm very excited about this particular product because this answers or solves the issue for many, many clients that were using course information more as a product, but didn't really have a way of effectively managing what it is that was going to be made available to the client or customer. So from the standpoint of coming and registering for a class as a product, it was fairly intuitive. You could put the information out there. You could create the digital download, etc. But, many clients needed it to take it a step further. So when you're talking about offering a particular workshop, for example, you need to manage the expectation of how many of those you have available to your overall client demographic. And that was a portion that we were missing in the actual product itself, and then we created this virtue for registrations. The great thing about this feature is that we actually expanded it, and this really came from brainstorming with a couple of clients, in that we could actually make it multi-purposed in the sense that not only do we have to use it for workshops, or it can be used for workshops, you can also make it work for you for portrait sessions. So it's another opportunity for you to effectively manage the expectation of your client, to give you more an intuitive vehicle to use to minimize the time that you would have to spend to manage that outside of your virtual platform. So again, talking about how to make the store work to your benefit and freeing you up to be more available to the core essence of your business, which is providing that product or service to your particular client and or customers. So you see here, in this case, we're using a portrait session as an example. There are 49 seats available for this type of portrait session, and the seats will be available, or the number of sessions that will be available, only run up into a finite date. So you can actually stipulate when specifically this portrait session will end. I think this is particularly effective when you're talking about promoting or when you're upselling, particularly with the holidays coming around. Everybody, I'm sure, is going to be extra busy or clamoring for people to take advantage of some of the products that you offer during the holiday season. And so you want to create a sense of urgency behind purchasing. So I think you have to strike while the iron's hot. So once you have their attention on your virtual platform, put a sense of urgency behind it. I think it incents people to react a bit more quickly, and I think that they'll see the implication of them taking advantage of something that's not, offered to your overall client demographic. So again, time is of the essence. It frees you up as far as managing a particular product online for an extensive period, and like I said, again, sets the expectation of what it is that your client can take advantage of. So here is what the component of the actual registration, in this case a portrait session, involves. So again, we were looking at the business model for a photographer to determine, well, what specific information is it that you want to capture that we can use this registration form with. So part of it, again, is I only have so many seats available, and it's going to be between now and the end of this particular product offering. And so, of course, you're going to be gathering, the typical information, which is going to be their contact information, email address, which I think is particularly good if you want to do email blasts to talk about your promotions or solicit clients to take advantage of specials or incentives that you're providing to clients, particularly those that have taken advantage of your product or service many, many times before. You also providing them the opportunity that if they have any special requests, like let's say, for example, it's a client that may have certain allergies or requires some type of special need to be fulfilled, or the photographer needs to be mindful of, all that information can be managed within this text box. So again, it's an option that you can actually create on the actual registration form itself. Of course, you don't need it. It's basically a virtue, which I'll show you on the actual control panel side, of all these particular options that you can make available to your clients in order to, again, minimize the time that you would have to spend in picking up the phone in order to obtain this information. So again, when you're talking about that availability window, you can actually break this down as far as time. And then, like I said, the number of clients that would be available to take advantage of those time slots, and break it down further by date. So again, if you're talking about strategizing or ensuring the best use of your time, particularly freeing you up to do specifically what it is that you provide as that product or service, list it out. Make it intuitive for your client so that they know this is all that I have available. You can take advantage of these particular options whenever convenient for you. But once these particular options are fulfilled, they aren't available anymore. And what I have also seen is that on that particular page where clients can take advantage of registering for either a course or a portrait session or whatever it is that you're making available, another option that I think is very helpful and I think is essential, particularly when you're talking about luring people or laying that breadcrumb trail to lead people back to the site, is if, for example, this particular product offering that you have fills up immediately, in other words, you put it out today and it gets completely booked and filled today, I think you should also present the incentive for people to come back or at least lead them to the next opportunity. So maybe it is something that you have available at different points during the year or during the month. So what you could do at the actual product level here is, you could make a statement that says, once this course has been filled or once the available seats have been fulfilled, we actually have another course coming up on X date. And again, with the product description, in this case the registration, providing you the ability to create code, you can actually create another link that says click here to register for next session or click here to register for next workshop. They click it, they actually go to the next workshop. So they're actually one step ahead of the general client or customer demographic. So again, you're presenting value to your client by providing them options which are very intuitive and easy to get to. So like I said, if they're not able to take advantage of what you have immediately, maybe they can plan for the future and take advantage of that particular product or option or service that you're making available at that time. The other thing I also wanted to point out was some of the information that you can provide in addition to the fields. Now, these fields can be depicted a couple of different ways. They can be depicted in this case as checkboxes. They can be depicted as radio buttons, drop-down menu options. You have the flexibility to do all of this within the system. So this example does not necessarily dictate the only option that's available in the store. There are a lot of flexible options as far as what you think is probably more conducive to your clients actually successfully getting through the process. So based on your experience with other clients, whether they're comfortable being online or not, maybe drop-down menu options are maybe a bit more intuitive, or maybe, like I said, these checkboxes work for you. But again, you're providing an opportunity for them to understand the reps and warranties or any disclosures that you feel are necessary, and them taking advantage of this particular course or session. The one thing that you don't see, and it's depicted at the lower portion of this, is that I actually created an option where they can actually sign. Now, it's not necessarily a digital signature. It's really just more of them typing in their name, their full name, I guess, as it would be depicted on a particular legal document. But again, you can use this as a means of binding them to those contractual agreements or those conditions that you set forth, with this particular service. So I just wanted to present you all again with an opportunity to make more of your business model virtual. And so registrations is essentially a page within the store. So similar to any other page that you can add to the store, whether you have a biz site or not, you can add the registration as a feature to your current store site. So if it's something that you don't currently have, it's made available to you by clicking under Extras. And so you can take advantage of it there, and then it would work in the same virtue as your products, your services, your prints, and your packages. So all of that will allow you to, again, exemplify your business model. And then, like I said, registrations would actually be within that same set of menu options. And so when you're actually looking at the registration form, again, is a bit more detailed because it involves far more options that are available to you. And again, it's just to customize what it is that you want to make available to the client, but also sets the expectation of what it is that you have available as far as your time or the number of products that you have available to provide to them. So as you can see here, the basic detailed description, which works in the same vein as products or services or packages. So again, you're managing the expectation here. The example down below with the digital download is if you have the opportunity to provide them, let's say, that syllabus or that outline or contractual agreement or terms and conditions or reps and warranties or whatever it is that you want to make available to them. As part of this registration for this particular service, you can also create the link so that once they pay for this, again, on that receipt that they'll receive, or really more the confirmation, they'll actually have the link to download the necessary materials. So again, if it's like a model agreement, they could basically print that off and then bring that signed copy into you when they're actually there to shoot the session. And so again, of course, you have the parameters for the number of times that particular document can be downloaded, as well as the number of availability. So I wanted to show you more detail as far as the actual registration form is concerned. And so part of what you see here is depicted on this particular form here. So basically, the options that you see listed here are basically how you create them within the store. So you're literally adding a field, and the field would then be, of course, whatever name you give it, and then the parameters of what that particular field type is. So whether it's going to be email address or phone number or last name, basically this is just to show the information that would appear in the actual box. You can also set the criteria of whether this is required or not. So again, if you're trying to take advantage of the information that you're going to be collecting from your client and or customer that you can use in the future, make it required. I think email address is definitely one of those beneficial fields, as well as name, of course, and phone number. But again, here's an opportunity for you to ask for additional information, particularly if there are any special requests attributed to satisfying your client's wishes. So whether you want that to be listed as a paragraph, you have the opportunity to do it here, or you can just make it a field so that basically it's just one linear line. They can type in some text. It's pretty limited, so depending upon how extensive you want to present that option, you may want to use a paragraph. And again, the options here outline the dates, again, that you're going to make available for that particular class or session or what have you, and then where you want that or how you want that depicted on the actual page. Again, the option here is that you can create is a drop-down menu or an actual option that you can select as a checkbox or as a radio button. And a radio button is basically that circular option that appears to the left of whatever option it is that you're making available. They work in the same virtue as a checkbox. You're basically just clicking inside the circle in order to make it available. And then, of course, the information that we added at the bottom, which is basically the signature, if you will. So for my particular example, I just wanted to create a means of people being able to sign to basically stipulate that they understand the conditions of, you know, this particular product or service that they're taking advantage of. This is the great component. So the other component that has been a common question or request of us, or demand, I should say, is how to manage that information. So again, from the product standpoint, when people were creating sessions and workshops, they really didn't have a means of being able to manage the quantity or the inventory aspect of this particular product or service. It was something that they're having to note outside of the system. Well, now we have the ability for, with that registration option, to include the number of seats that you make available for that particular client or clients to take advantage of. And so the benefit that you have here is that you literally have a virtual inventory control, so to speak, so that you're managing the expectation on the front end. So once a particular slot is fulfilled based on the information that you depict here, then basically that option is no longer available to them. So the option doesn't even show up anymore. So again, the great thing is that you can actually come out here and you can actually see, based on the criteria that you've created, how many of those are actually remaining at the end of the period. And so maybe you want to open up, that particular product or service or session that you want to make available to your clients because maybe all the seats haven't been fulfilled. So again, here's another online opportunity for you to take advantage of information that's already being collected from your clients on that same virtual platform, so you're not having to go to two different places in order to do that. Obviously, the attendees list will show you the information that's been provided to you by your client and or customer, so you're not necessarily having, again, to track that information outside of the actual system. So that pretty much concludes what I wanted to cover with the store and helping your business model shine on the store. What I always recommend is calling us, emailing us, sending in a support ticket, what have you. We're here to help you make effective options enabled for your clients to be able to take advantage of. There probably isn't a business scenario that has been presented to us that we haven't been able to come up with some solution that will accomplish ideally what you want. Now, it may not necessarily be within the parameters specifically of what you want, but like I said, the end result is we will come up with some solution, or we also have the opportunity to submit that information to the idea bank. And the thing that I want to impart before I conclude is I actively recommend, in contacting us for information or, again, brainstorming a particular concept or idea that you have, we have the opportunity to submit those suggestions to the idea bank. So the thing that I love about PhotoBiz, as opposed to my previous experiences with design and implementation, is you actively play a role in what gets developed. And I've not worked for a company in my many years of being employed by design firms, the opportunity to play an intricate role in that. And so it isn't necessarily that whatever the masses wish for, we implement, but a lot of times I've found that to be exactly the case. Now, it's all a matter of timing, of course, because we can't necessarily bring all solutions to the table at the same time. But the idea really is that we do actively hear your suggestions. We do actually note them. So if you have the opportunity to speak with a web consultant, and like I said, we're not able to derive a permanent solution for you, we can submit it to the Idea Bank. They actively look at that every Friday, and then, like I said, design and QA take an active look on, well, what would it take to actually create or implement that particular design option. So at this point, I wanted to just open it up to questions that you may have. So if you have any questions, you can, of course, submit them by chat or via Twitter. So I'll go ahead and take those. We'll just check and see what we have available. We got a question from JT Towers, and the question was, do I have the ability to copy a previously made workshop? And you do. So the idea really is that it's going to work like many of the other products. And I know for some other clients that we've worked with, they requested the functionality to be able to copy those repeatedly. So it's something that I need to check. But as far as I recall, I think you do have the ability to do that. And then in regards to Christy Garrison's question, we will have the presentation available on our YouTube channel, and I provide a link towards the end of this presentation for you to be able to take advantage of. And then Jay Valles sent in a question that says, do you have a list of printing labs that take the orders? I would recommend contacting us. There are several to take advantage of. One caveat to that would be, I wouldn't necessarily say that all labs are created equal, so it could be that many of the clients that have utilized a particular lab may have had an exemplary experience with them, and you may not have so much of an exemplary experience. And that's part of the reason why we don't marry up order fulfillment to our store site, mainly because we want to leave that to your discretion, but more importantly, we also don't take a commission on your actual sales. Okay, and then regarding David Jewell's question, is there a way for you all to take over my computer to help me with a problem instead of me trying to tell you it? Yes, we actually use a program called join.me, David, which is fairly simple. It's not intrusive. We're not going to come in there and hack your online banking or anything like that. It's really a great way for us to show you specifically what it is that we're doing, within your store or your website. And it makes it a lot easier, particularly when you're talking about a situation as you've outlined, which is it's a rather complex issue. And part of what we want to see in those conditions is exactly what you're seeing, because I think a lot of that is difficult to describe, via a phone call or even during a screenshot, because you may not necessarily have the ability to recreate that issue or that instance of that particular problem or error message that you have. So I highly, highly recommend calling the support team whenever you are needing that type of support or consultation, or like I said, if you run into an issue. So we also got a question in from Graham Civilis. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And it says that you don't use the store yet, but that it looks very interesting for me. Great. The difference being, what is the nuance between the biz and the store? And it's not a stupid question, Graham. We actually get that quite a bit. So the biz site is really more for content more than anything else. So it's a seamless integration of information onto the store platform. So in some of the slides that we shown initially, the biz site, I think, is really effective when you're talking about creating that initial expectation or that initial branding. When you're trying to manage the overall experience that you want your clients to have within the store. So the biz site, I think, is great because it allows you to put text on the storefront. It also allows you to create these navigational buttons. So again, if people are not taking advantage of the menu options because they don't read, then you're creating those action items that I referred to before, which is people see pictures and a word and they react to it because they know there's an immediate action to clicking on this button. It's going to take me somewhere. So I highly recommend utilizing the Biz site. Is it a required function to utilize the store overall? No. But again, I think that people immediately see the value in having the Biz site, particularly with the Marquee Plus pages, in creating that large banner image, which for many clients I see used as an opportunity to cross-promote. So if you're running a particular special, you can create a banner image at the top of that Biz site Marquee Plus page, and essentially that will be the first thing along with your branding, which will be your logo, that would be presented to your client. You can even make it so that that marquee item actually takes them somewhere. You can link it so that it's actually clickable and more of an action item that may take them to a specific page that talks about from a product level what that special is. So is it the same? No, but like I said, it's a seamless integration of the two, basically creating, I think, a great overall experience for your client and their customer. So the next question that we have is from Kevin Smith, and he's inquiring about the store that he purchased some time ago, and it's not set up because of the challenge with the layouts. And what I would recommend there, Kevin, is just giving us a call or sending in a support ticket, because I think we can help you effectively get through that process. Many clients kind of end up at this juncture where they purchased the store some time ago, and they're basically determining when there's an opportunity for them to make, you know, the transition fully to the store. Another question that we have is from Julie Glide, and it says, is there anyone at PhotoBiz that totally designs and set up our store for us? Yes, we actually provide a service to assist you with overall design elements associated with any of our product platforms, particularly the portfolio site and the store and the blog. So it's one of the options that you can take advantage of when you're initially logged into the control panel. You'll see an option for services, which is going to be in the upper right-hand corner. So in addition to web styling, which is what we refer to it as, you can also take advantage of SEO services. So if you would like us to help you with your search engine optimization plan or strategy, we take that to the next level because we actually do it for you, which I think is a bit more conducive, particularly with SEO being what it is, and that it's essentially a moving target. And with so many updates that are occurring, people always inquire about additional help for that. Oh, and I just wanted to mention to check the control panel to see what the pricing is for those particular services, whether it's going to be SEO or web styling or social media. Those are all immediately available to you, and once you purchase that particular service, you'll actually have an initial consultation with one of the experts that will talk about your goals and your strategies, and then, like I said, kind of help you facilitate the overall design or to accomplish specifically what it is that you wanted. So Rachel, I got your inquiry, which is really about the digital download function. Based on what you inquired, which is there availability for your clients to go into their particular event and choose which images they want to digitally download? At this point, our system doesn't support that. However, what I will say is that we've actually submitted a couple of different ideas to design on accomplishing just that. Part of the challenge, of course, is that we protect your intellectual property because we make it, you know, right-click and drag and drop protected. So the means of creating a download feature is one of the things that design is looking at. Because for most folks, when they think about digital downloads, it's probably a bit more intuitive than the initial solution that we came up with. So currently, we don't have the ability to support your current request. However, I did want to stipulate that it is something that's been submitted to the Idea Bank because there are a lot of clients that want to take advantage of that too. It looks like we've reached the end of the question. Oh, we have another question from Rachel. Thanks, Rachel. Where did the PowerVision site create buttons, Twilight package, and optional add-ons? Is there a website that gives you code for those buttons? No, actually, Rachel, that's something that I assisted a client with, and it's based on the image itself for those actual buttons being hosted on another platform. In other words, this client has hosting elsewhere, and it's a pretty significant hosting opportunity. So there's a lot that we did in the way of coding that was supported by way of those external resources. So I don't necessarily have a site that I could point you to create those buttons specifically. Excuse me. However, excuse me. However, what I will say is there are a lot of resources that are out there to help you. So if you're a particular novice with coding, you can certainly call us. We can kind of facilitate helping you through the process, or you could send in a support ticket. However, there are a couple of different options that you can use. Quackit.com is one, and I commonly use that if I have a brain freeze and I'm not sure how to code something really, really simple like a link. 24-Hour Cafe is another one, and I use that primarily with the international clients that I work with, so Ireland, Australia, and the UK. It's apparently more popular over there than it is here, but I guess it's catching on. And the other one that is probably more commonly used than probably anything else is W3 Schools. I believe it's w3schools.com. That is great, and that's probably the site that I would recommend because it's really, really like coding for people who've never really touched a keyboard. So again, I use it quite often because every once in a while the simplest of coding virtues kind of stumps me, where something really complex is pretty easy to figure out. But W3 Schools is great because basically what it will do is it will provide you kind of a step-by-step process of you put your information here, what do you want this particular option to represent as far as a link, and then there's an opportunity for you to create it. And you can actually add in color features and all that stuff. So I think it's a bit more intuitive than Quackit or 24-Hour Cafe. But I think, like I said, W3 Schools should definitely help most folks accomplish what they want. So I'm going to tackle two of the questions that we have, or I'm going to combine them, one from Graham and one from Rachel. And I appreciate you all submitting these great questions. So the overall benefit of the Biz site, again, is a seamless integration of content pages. And so for most clients that see a store depicted by another client, the first question that they ask is, well, how can I create that exact environment? And really, it's done by way of the Biz site. And again, the Biz site contains content pages. Where the store is more singular in purpose and virtue, it's really the whole e-commerce or the online shopping experience. And the Biz site actually provides more information about how that online experience can be accomplished. So when you're talking about adding things like buttons, that's the Biz site because that is essentially a Marquee Plus page. And then if you wanted to add widgets like Facebook, as Graham had alluded to, you can do that on the Biz site. So you can actually create on that home page, if you will, of your store, the options that you want to create, whether they're packages or services or client access to their galleries, as well as buttons to Facebook or Twitter or what have you. If you actually want to put the widgets in there for the like box, that basically shows your news stream from Facebook, you can certainly do that, create a button for Twitter. I mean, it's pretty extensive as far as what the actual content features of the Biz site provide to you. Now, again, the idea is that you're not trying to recreate your site. You're not trying to create another branding vehicle. You're just trying to capitalize on what it is that you've created virtually that may exist outside of that portfolio site. The other option, too, is, of course, you can connect both the store and the blog by way of that Biz site. And the blog and the store actually function on the same template. So you're not talking about necessarily two separate experiences. But if you created a button that said blog, blog would actually take them to the blog page. And then depending upon how you have the blog displayed, whether that's in the summary view or if it's that more full post view, again, you're managing the expectation that when they click on blog, they'll actually see all the blog components, so you can actually create a home page for the blog itself. And I think that pretty much concludes our questions. Hi, Rachel. I saw your last question, and what I would probably recommend is having either Danny or myself give you a call, um, because your business model sounds such that you already have a vision in mind, and I think that we could collaboratively come up with something that I think would be intuitive and satisfy, your business needs, because we're actually, I think, out of time for our webinar. But again, we can talk in greater detail offline, so either Danny or myself will contact you.
All right, everybody. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for your great questions today, and thank you so much to Jeff from the Passionate Support Team for the excellent presentation. A recording of today's webinar is going to be online on our YouTube channel, and it is going to be available at youtube.com/photobiz. So be sure to join us for our next webinar, Going to Marketing, Selling to One, Not Just the Masses, which is going to be featuring two photographers, a couple, James and Jenny Tarpley. That's going to be on October 30th at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you again, Jeffrey, and this is going to conclude today's episode of PhotoBiz Live. Have a great day, everybody.